Good morning, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Google+. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for Sunday, May 15th, 2016, around 6:43 in the morning, Berwick, Massachusetts. It's going to be a sunny day out today, but much cooler, about 60 degrees. Some news to report: the Indiana Pacers on the verge of signing Nate McMillan to a contract to become the team's next head coach, and it's Happy International Day of Families. And that's about it on the news. My first video blog subject of the day is about Starrcade 1983, a flair for the gold. Starrcade 83 was the first of 18 Starrcades that Mid-Atlantic /NWA Jim Crockett Promotions WCW produced, and Starrcade was the first major supercard in professional wrestling that was distributed via closed circuit television. It was on Thanksgiving Day night, November 24th, 1983, at the Greensboro Coliseum. It was a flair for gold. The main event was for the NWA World Title. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, facing off against Harley Race in a steel cage match with Gene Kiniski, the referee, and other great exciting matches. Calling it was Gordon Soley, the Dean of Wrestling announcers, and Bob Carter, who was the voice of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling for years. The first match of Starrcade 1983 were the Assassins, number 1 and number 2, with Mr. 1 Paul Jones as their manager, facing off against Rufus R. Jones and Bugsy McGraw. Rufus R. Jones was the Mid-Atlantic champion at this time, and this was a decent match to open it up. Back and forth. Ending had Bugsy McGraw slamming Assassin number 2, but Assassin number 1 was the legal man. He scooped up Bugsy McGraw for the 1, 2, 3. The next match was Kevin Sullivan and Maniac Mark Lewin facing off against Scotty McGee and Johnny Weaver. Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin were accompanied to the ring by their manager, Playboy Gary Hart. This is when Kevin Sullivan was into his devil worshipper gimmick, and it was a decent match. Both teams traded pinfalls back and forth, near pinfalls back and forth action. Ending had Kevin Sullivan come off the top rope while Mark Lewin and Gary Hart held Johnny Weaver's hand. Kevin Sullivan pins Johnny Weaver for the 1, 2, 3. Afterwards, Scotty McGee tries to help out, but Lewin and Gary Hart and Kevin Sullivan beat up on Scotty McGee, and his face is becoming a crimson mask, and then Angelo King Kong Mosca helps out and eventually runs off the heels. The next match was a grudge match. It was Abdullah the Butcher facing off against Carlos Colon. Abdullah the Butcher and Carlos Colon had a long-running feud in WWC, that's World Wrestling Council, and they brought it to the Mid-Atlantic area, and it was a very quick match. It was brawling between Carlos Colon and Abdullah the Butcher. Carlos Colon even got Abdullah the Butcher in the figure 4 leg lock, which was amazing considering Abdullah the Butcher's well over that 400-pound mark. And Abdullah the Butcher accidentally elbowed the referee, but then Carlos Colon was beating him up and getting into figure 4, but eventually somebody charged the ring, which was Hugo Savinovich, and Abdullah the Butcher pins Carlos Colon for the 1, 2, 3. The next match was a tag team match. It was Dirty Dick Slater and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. facing off against Chief Wahoo McDaniels and Mark Youngblood, and this was a decent tag team match. It was, back and forth action. The crowd came wild when Wahoo came in because he was a fan favorite. Ending of the match had Bob Orton deliver the superplex to Mark Youngblood and pinned him 1, 2, 3. The next match was for the Mid-Atlantic Television title versus Mask. It was Charlie Brown from out of town, who bore a resemblance of the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, facing off against the Great Kabuki with Gary Hart as his manager. It was Mask versus TV title. Jimmy Valiant lost the Losers Leave Town match to Kabuki in June of 1983, but he came back as Charlie Brown from out of town, and it was Jimmy Valiant. And if Charlie Brown lost the match, he would have to unmask, and it was going to be Jimmy Valiant. He would be gone from Mid-Atlantic for a year. And this match was a quick match. Charlie Brown beats Kabuki for the 1, 2, 3, and Charlie Brown becomes the Mid-Atlantic Television title champion. The next match was the dog collar match. It was Rowdy Piper facing off against Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Greg the Hammer Valentine was the United States champion at this time, but the title was not on the line on this one. It was kind of non-sanctioned by Mid-Atlantic and NWA, and Gordon Sully several times says the match was for the U.S. champion, but it was not. Gordon had probably too many beers to drink at this time, as most of this Ducati sounded he was intoxicated. And this was, a back and forth match. Valentine focused on Piper's ear, which, he lost 75% of that hearing. That's how Greg the Hammer Valentine won the U.S. title in April of 1983, because Piper, the angle had him hurting Piper's ear, and it was just Piper lost his equilibrium a couple of times, and Gordon Sully says he should have thrown in the towel. But at the end, it was Piper chained up Valentine for the 1, 2, 3. The next match was for the NWA World Tag Team titles. It was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Jay Youngblood facing off against the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry Briscoe. This was a culmination of a long-running feud that started in June of 1983, when both the Briscoes and Steamboat and Youngblood were friends, and they had a friendly tag team match. But eventually the Briscoes turned heel, and then they switched off the NWA World Tag Team titles, and this was the culmination of the feud. And special guest referee was Angelo King Kong Mosca. And it was an awesome match, back and forth. Ending had Ricky Steamboat pin Jerry Briscoe for the 1, 2, 3. The Briscoes, most of the match, were arguing with Angelo King Kong Mosca, and afterwards they attacked King Kong Mosca, and they attacked Steamboat and Youngblood until the faces run off the Briscoes. And the main event for this starrcade, it was a Flair for the Gold. It was held in a 15-foot high steel cage. It was Nature Boy Ric Flair facing off against 7-time NWA World Champion Harley Race, and the special guest referee was former NWA World Champion Gene Kineski. And this was a culmination of Ric Flair's and Harley Race's feud, which started in June of 1983, when Harley Race put up a $25,000 bounty onto any wrestler who could take Ric Flair out of professional wrestling. It was Dick Slater and Bob Orton who did it, and Ric Flair needed to retire, but he came back several weeks later to swing the baseball bat, and he wanted Harley Race, and he got him in a steel cage. This was over a 20-minute match. A lot of back and forth. Harley Race was arguing with Kineski, and Ric Flair put a couple of times the figure 4 leg lock on Harley Race, but he, kicked out. Also, there was a lot of blood by Ric Flair. His face is becoming a crimson mask, as Gordon Solie said. Ending had Ric Flair jump off the top rope and dive onto Harley Race for the 1, 2, 3. And Gordon Solie says, he did it! Ric Flair just defeated 7-time world champion Harley Race. And the crowd went wild. And then the ring came emptied with a lot of faces, including Steamboat and Youngblood and Angelo King Kong Mosca. He was parading through the steel cage with the NWA World Championship. Then Ric Flair's then wife Beth comes, and it was one of the greatest moments of Ric Flair's career. He became NWA World Champion for the second time. This was his second world title reign. And Starrcade 83, my humble opinion was, this was basically kind of a 3-match show with like the 3 great matches with Ric Flair and Harley Race, and the dog collar match between Piper and Valentine, and then the tag team title match between Youngblood and Steamboat facing off against the Briscoe brothers. You put those 3 matches together, this card would be like, an A+. The rest of the matches were like kind of filler, or a couple of them. The first 2 tag team matches were kind of a little pointless, and the rest of them somewhat had a purpose. And I would give this card a B, a solid B+. There was rumors that Hulk Hogan was going to be on Starrcade 83, but he just signed with the WWE at this point. And performance of Gordon Solie was absolutely awful because he was drunk during Starrcade 83. I don't know why they could have had just Bob Caudle and David Crockett call it, but they had a few wrestlers from Championship Wrestling from Florida here, and I think Jim Crockett probably would have sounded better with Gordon Solie as like the head play-by-play announcer, because he was a well-known wrestling announcer worldwide. Well, Bob Caudle was just known as like Mid-Atlantic. And that's about it on that. I'll be back later. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Google Plus with 2 more video blogs. One will be about the former sports TV network of digital, over-the-air, and cable NBC Universal Sports. And the third and final video blog of the night will be about the late great actor and director Leonard Nimoy. Keep calm, everybody. I'm a Julie but a guy. Molly was blood of WCCO rocks, and it's nice legs, a little bit hot, so Sunday, it's 10 inches to pass. She's got nice legs as well. Amy Swenzy of Leash 2 rocks. And Bob Gibbs of ABC 11 has that sweet Southern accent. And in the words of Jim Ross, WWE Hall of Famer, would somebody stop the jam match? Enough's enough. Goodbye, everybody.